Saturday of the 15th week in Ordinary Time.
A reading from the book of Exodus. The children of Israel set out from Ramesses for Sukkoth, about 600,000 men on foot, not counting the little ones. A crowd of mixed ancestry also went up with them, besides their livestock, very numerous flocks and herds. Since the dough they had brought out of Egypt was not leavened, they baked it into unleavened loaves. They had rushed out of Egypt and had no opportunity even to prepare food for the journey. The time the children of Israel had stayed in Egypt was 430 years. At the end of 430 years, all the hosts of the Lord left the land of Egypt on this very date. This was a night of vigil for the Lord, as he led them out of the land of Egypt. So on this same night, all the children of Israel must keep a vigil for the Lord throughout their generations. The word of the Lord.
The responsorial psalm. The response is, His mercy endures forever. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good, for His mercy endures forever. Who remembered us in our abjection, for His mercy endures forever, and freed us from our foes, for His mercy endures forever. His mercy endures forever. Who smote the Egyptians in their firstborn, for His mercy endures forever, and brought out Israel from their midst, for His mercy endures forever. With a mighty hand and an outstretched arm, for His mercy endures forever. His mercy endures forever. Who split the Red Sea in twain, for His mercy endures forever, and led Israel through its midst, for His mercy endures forever, but swept Pharaoh and his army into the Red Sea, for His mercy endures forever. His mercy endures forever.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. The Pharisees went out and took counsel against Jesus to put him to death. When Jesus realized this, he withdrew from that place. Many people followed him, and he cured them all, but he warned them not to make him known. This was to fulfill what had been spoken through Isaiah the prophet. Behold my servant, whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom I delight. I shall place my spirit upon him, and he will proclaim justice to the Gentiles. He will not contend or cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, a smoldering wick he will not quench, until he brings justice to victory. And in his name the Gentiles will hope. The Gospel of the Lord.
Saturday of the 15th week in Ordinary Time. The first reading is from Exodus 12, 37 to 42. We hear that about 600,000 men set out during the Exodus experience, and that they're mixed ancestry. First of all, the idea of 600,000 men. That would imply another 600,000 women, maybe 1,800,000 children, which would give us a mass of about 3 million people. If they walk 6 abreast, and about 1 meter apart, that's a line that goes all the way from Cairo to Beirut. It's an exaggerated number. There were probably a few thousand people. 600,000 is a number given to show the power of God's wondrous deeds. And they're of mixed ancestry. When the Israelites left, other slaves joined them. It was a good time to get out while the going was good. They had stayed in Egypt for 430 years, and they were to celebrate their liberation with a vigil through all their generations. We know that during much of Israel's history, the Jewish people do celebrate Passover, but it's possible that during certain periods, especially during bad kings' reigns, that the practice was discontinued and had to be re-inaugurated when a reforming king would come to the throne. The Gospel is from Matthew 12, 14 to 21. Jesus goes off into a deserted place because the Pharisees are trying to arrest him or kill him. And we hear a fulfillment of a prophecy It talks about the servant of Yahweh who would not break a bruised reed, he would not quench a smoldering wick. This is a prophecy of the suffering servant. It's applied to Jesus in Matthew because Matthew goes out of his way to show that Jesus is the fulfillment of all the promises that have been made for the Messiah. Now it's interesting that the songs of the suffering servant weren't necessarily seen as prophecies for the coming of the Messiah. The Jewish people during the Old Testament times weren't quite sure to whom they referred. It's Jesus himself who applied these songs to his ministry when he called himself the Son of Man, a phrase taken from Daniel 7, and when he used vocabulary taken from these songs. He would be betrayed, handed over, killed, and raised from the dead. Those phrases are taken right from the songs of the suffering servant. Jesus uses that song to give an interpretation of what his ministry is. He's come not to be the Christ in the way that the Jews understood it, but rather to be the suffering servant who frees us from our sins through his death. And may God bless us.